Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. And welcome back, all of you. Are you having a great day? Is everything going well? No? Oh, well, let's hope that things will improve. If everything is going well, let's hope that things continue to go well and perhaps even get better. Fingers crossed you'll win the lottery this week. Okay, it's Friday. It's the end of the working week and the beginning of the weekend. And it's that time again. You know, that time when we look back on what we learned this week. Yes, it's the Friday Roundup. That time on a Friday afternoon when we revisit all the things we spoke about and learned about this week. So, let's get stuck in. Okay now, who remembers the topic of this week's English lessons? You all do? Well, I'm not surprised. I'm never surprised by the gods of English. Okay, so you all agree that we remember what we learned this week. Good. But we still need to check that we remembered everything correctly. We still need to run over this week's lessons to make sure that everyone understands everything. All right. Now, this week was all about the future. That's right, the future. Spaceships, flying cars, robot monkeys, time travel, phasers, lightsabers, teleport machines. All of the normal things we think of when someone says the future. No, I'm sorry. That was a white lie. This week was about the future, but we didn't learn about any of those things. We didn't talk about flying cars driven by robot monkeys with lightsabers and phasers teleporting through time. No. So that was a white lie. A white lie is a little lie, one that isn't important, one which won't cause any problems. No. So this week, we didn't learn about robot monkeys at all. This week, we learned about the future in English. This week, we learned another way to talk about the future in English. A few weeks ago, we learned to use will to talk about the future in English. And this week, we learned another way to talk about the future in English. This week, we learned about going to. Great! And so, on we go to the next level. Yes, all you devotees of Yoda, it's time to have our first look at going to. Bachinga bonga! Okay, so we already learned that we use will to talk about the future. But, we don't only use will to talk about the future. In some situations, will is perfectly okay. But in other situations, we need to use something else. One of those situations is when we're talking about a future plan. When we're talking about a future plan, we use going to. Simple as that. Okay, so let's have a look at going to. Now, I said that we use going to talk about future plans. This means that when I use going to, I already decided to do something. The decision was made in the past, but the action itself is going to take place in the future. Okay, great. Now, what do we need to know about the form of going to? how do we put a sentence together with going to? Well, it's quite simple, but we have to use the verb to be. We use the verb to be, am, is, are, and then we add going to, followed by a verb in the infinitive without to. So, what do we have to be careful about? That's right. We have to be careful with the verb to be. It changes for different subjects, doesn't it? So, if we're talking about ourselves, we use I am. If we're talking about you, then we use you are. If we're talking about the third person singular, then we use he, she, it is. And if we're talking about the plural subjects, we use are. We are, you are, and they are. Great! Okay, fantastic! Now, what do we do next when we want to make a sentence using going to? Any ideas? Does anyone remember? That's right. We know that we start with the subject. I, you, Alfredo, Tim. Then we pick the correct version of the verb to be. Am, are, is. After that, we add going to. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about I or you or he. We don't have to change anything with going to. We already made the change when we conjugated the verb to be. So, we add going to, and then we add a verb in the infinitive without to. Simple. Okay, Mabel, Mabel. Oh, Mabel, Mabel, I sent you a telegram. Please read it now while you show us a diagram. Fantastic! So, we can see how we make sentences using going to. Now, one thing we haven't looked at yet is what? Come on! You all know the next step. What are we going to look at next? Bingo! The next thing we need to look at is the negative form. How can we use going to in a negative sense? Now, which word do you think we're going to use? Come on, you all know the answer to the question. Anyone? Yes, that's right. The question is open to anyone. Anyone? Aha, that's right. Whenever we learn about the negative in English, we always meet the word not. When we change the positive present simple sentence, I like custard, into a negative sentence, which word do we need? Yes, not. We change I like custard into I don't like custard. Good. And what about the past simple? Which word do we need to change the positive past simple sentence, he worked on Friday evening, into a negative past simple sentence? Yes, that's right. We need the word not again, don't we? Now, do you remember how we made negative sentences in the past simple? We need to use another verb as well, don't we? Just as we use the verb to do when we ask questions in the present simple. Do you like potatoes? When we ask questions and make negative sentences in the past simple, we use the past form of the verb to do, did. The sentence becomes, he didn't work on Friday evening. We use did plus the infinitive without to make a past simple negative sentence. When we ask a question using the past simple, we also use did. But when we ask a question, we have to remember to change the word order and put a question mark at the end, don't we? The question is, Did he work on Friday evening? So, let's see all that in a table, shall we? Mabel, Mabel, lover of art, can you show us those things in a chart, please? Okay, great. Now, we know that we need to use the word not to make a negative with going to. So, how do we do it? Well, it's simple. In fact, for all of you out there, for you gods of English, it's as easy as ABC.
ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3. All simple as do, re, mi. ABC, 1, 2, 3, baby, you and me, girl.
Okay, the Jackson 5, Michael, Jermaine, Janet, Latoya, and Boris. Anyway, we're better than them, and we know it. And now for the easy bit. How do we make a negative sentence using going to? Well, we know that we need the word not. Okay, and how do we make a sentence with going to? What other verb do we need to make a sentence with going to? That's correct, a doodle-doo. Bullseye, ping pong, the witch is dead. Brilliant. We need the verb to be, don't we? Yes. When we make a sentence with going to, we use the verb to be. I am or I'm going to the cinema tonight, for example. So, if we'd like to change the positive sentence into a negative one, what do you think we should do? Well, we have to add not, but where should we put it? Well, the not goes between the verb to be and going to. We start with the subject, a personal pronoun, for example, I, you, he. Then we add the correctly conjugated verb to be, am, are, is. Then we add the word not, and then we add going to. So when we change a positive sentence with going to into a negative sentence with going to, we change it like this. I'm going to have lunch with Chief Mangasutu Buthelezi tomorrow at noon. And it changes to, I'm not going to have lunch with Chief Mangasutu Buthelezi tomorrow at noon. And now, chickens of the forest, there's just one part left, the question form. Okay, so let's ask a question with going to. We have to start with the correct version of the verb to be, am, are, or is. Then we follow with the subject, I, you, he, Alfredo. Then we add going to. And finally, we end with a verb in the infinitive without to, and, that's right, don't forget the question mark. Okay, shall we ask Mabel to put that information into a table for us? Okay, Mabel, Mabel, mistress dressed in sable, help us out here, please, with a table. Fantastic! So, now we all remember that we use the verb to be as the auxiliary verb to help us make sentences with going to. It's not important if the sentence is positive, negative, or a question. We have to conjugate the verb to be to match the subject correctly when we're making sentences with going to. And that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching. Check out the material at m5tv.hu and I'll see you next lesson. See you later. Bye.